Welcome. Our topic is about the sense of smell. So before we begin, let me just first explain about the parts and functions of the nose. So, nose is a permanent structure between the eyes that serves as the entrance to the respiratory tract and contains the olfactory organ. It provides air for respiration, serves the sense of smell, conditions the air by filtering, warming, and moisturizing it, and cleans itself of foreign debris extracted from inhalation. So, the nose has two cavities separated from one another by a wall of cartilage called the septum. The external openings are known as nares or nostrils. The roof of the mouth and the floor of the nose are formed by the palatine bone, the mouth part of which is commonly called the hard palate, a flap of tissue. The soft palate extends back into the nasopharynx. The nasal portion of the throat, and during swallowing, is pressed upward, thus closing off the nasopharynx, so that food is not lodged in the back of the nose. The shape of the nasal cavity is complex. The forward section within the complex The forward section within and above each nostril is called the vestibule. Behind the vestibule and along each outer wall are three elevations running generally from front to rear. Each elevation, called a nasal concha or turbinate, hangs over an air passage. Beside and above the uppermost concha is the olfactory region of the nasal cavity. The rest of the cavity is the respiratory portion. The respiratory area is lined with a moist mucous membrane with fine hair-like projections known as cilia, which serve to collect debris. Mucus from cells in the membrane wall also helps to trap particles of dust, carbon, soot, and bacteria. Sinus cavities are located in the bony skull on both sides of the bones. In the olfactory smelling portion of the nose, most of the lining is mucous membrane. A small segment of the lining contains the nerve cells that are the actual sensory organs, fibres called dendrites, which project from the nerve cells into the nasal cavity, are covered only by a thin layer of moisture. The moisture dissolves microscopic particles that the air has carried into the nose from other emitting substances, and the particles dissolved in the fluid stimulate the olfactory nerve cells chemically. So this is our internal nose looks like.
Our sense of smell works by the dictation of odors. Our olfactory epithelium located in the nose contains millions of chemical receptors that dictates odor. When we sniff, chemicals in the air are dissolved in mucus. Odor receptor neurons in olfactory epithelium dictates these odors are sent the signal on the olfactory bulbs. These signals are then sent along olfactory trunks to the olfactory cortex of the brain through sensory transduction. The olfactory cortex is vital from the processing and perception of odor. It is located in the temporal lobe of the brain, which is involved in organizing sensory input. The olfactory cortex is also a component of the limbic system. This system is involved in the processing of our emotions, survival instinct, and memory formation.
Okay, sense of smell. Your sense of smell is the only sense that has a direct connection to the brain, also known as olfaction. It is one of the chemical senses involving the detection of chemical from the environment. Olfaction, the sense of smell, occurs in response to odors that stimulate sensory receptors in the extreme superior region of the nasal cavity, known as olfactory region. It is where the bodily structures that serve the sense of smell, which is in the superior region of the nasal cavity. The olfactory region is lined with a specialized epithelium called olfactory epithelium. It is found within the nasal cavity and also contains olfactory receptor cells which have specialized cilia extension. The cilia trap odor molecules as they pass across the epithelial surface, information about the molecule and then transmit from the receptor to the olfactory bulb in the brain. Pseudostratified columnar, it is the type of epithelium in this olfactory that contains a meshwork of sustentacular microville and olfactory cilia on the surface, which means it is the network or for support within and surround the olfactory epithelium. Facts about our sense of smell. People can detect at least 1 trillion distinct scents. Scientists thought that the human nose could only detect about 10,000 different smells, but that information was based on the study from 1927 and it is very outdated. This year, researchers from Rockefeller University test people's sense that smell by using different mixture of odor molecules, and the results, published in the journal Science, show that the nose can smell at least 1 trillion distinct scents. Number 2, scent cells are renewed every 30 days to 60 days. Scent cells are renewed every 30 to 60 days, so every 2 to 3 months you get a new nose. You can smell things better in the spring and summer due to the additional moisture in the air. For the same reason, it is stronger after exercise, which also increases the moisture in the nasal passage. Number 3, you can smell fear and disgust. You can smell feeling and fear and disgust throughout sweat, and then you can experience the same emotion. Researchers collected sweat from men as they watch movies for this that cause these feelings, which is fear. To remain odor neutral for the sweat test, the men use sense-free product and quit smoking and using alcohol. Women participate then completed visual search test while unknowingly smelling the sweetest samples. The woman's eyes, movements, and facial expression were recorded during this time. Number 4, smell is the oldest sense. Chemodetection, detecting chemicals related to the smell or taste. Even a single-celled animals has ways to detect the chemical composition of the environment. 5. Women have a better sense of smell than men. Women always be a better at odor and smell identification than men. And every study finds that the reason for this may be that women have a more developed orbital prefrontal region of the brain. It may have also evolved from an ability to discern the best possible mates or to help women better bond with understand newborns. 6. Your sense of smell can also diminish, especially after age 70. This may be related to a loss of nerves endings and less mucus production in the nose. Mucus help odors stay in the nose long enough to be detected by the nerve endings. It also helps clear odors from the nerve endings. 7. Dogs have nearly 44 times more sense cells than humans. Humans have 5 to 6 million odor detecting cells as compared to dogs that have 220 million cells. We have evolved that really less on our sense of smell, while most animals have retained this sense. Okay, now I will share to you the importance of sense of smell. Sense of smell obtains important information for our decision, especially for our healthy action. It has the vital functions such as warning and protection. To warning or to alert us to danger like gas leak, fire, or rotten food. Bad smell actually send pain signals to the brain to warn us to possible danger. Smell is a vital for survival of most humans and animals as it enables to track food and water.
The man smelled the coffee. The olfactory system is responsible for the sense of smell or olfaction. Basically, airborne molecules emitted by an odorant source are detected by olfactory sensory neuron located at the roof of the nasal cavity. These neurons convert chemical stimuli into electrical signals and send them via olfactory nerves to the olfactory bulb, then to the brain, where they are interpreted as odors. Odorants molecules are first dissolved in the, in the mucus secreted by the olfactory epithelium, which guide them to the cilia of olfactory neurons. This is when odorant molecules bind to the receptors. Each neuron expresses a single type of protein receptor. There are only about 400 different receptors in humans, but they are used in a domolectrial way such that one odorant combines several receptors and one receptor can bind several odorants. This enables the olfactory system to recognize an immense number of odorants. Odorants receptors are G protein. The G protein coupled upon binding to the odorant, a signaling is activated leading to the membrane depolarization. When olfactory stimulus is strong enough, action potential dictated and conducted along the axon to the olfactory bulb. The axons of all olfactory sensory neurons form the olfactory nerves, also known as cranial nerves 1. In the olfactory bulb, these axons synapse with second order neurons, the mitral interrupted cells with and structures called glam glomeruli. Each glomeruli receives axons from sensory neurons that express the same protein receptor. The second-order neurons are stimulated by sensory neurons, but they also receive inhibitory feedback from the cerebral cortex. This means an odorant can be perceived differently under different circumstances. For example, the smell of food is more appealing when one is hungry and is less so when one is full. The axons of mitral and stratified cells form the olfactory tracts, which project directly to the primary olfactory cortex. The primary olfactory cortex is none what but several cortical areas located in the base of the frontal lobe and inferior surface of the temporal lobe. These primary regions then project further to some other areas of the brain, mediating different aspects of odor, recognition, and response. Because olfactory neurons are exposed directly to the nauseous extravagant environment, they are replaced more often than other neuron system cell in the epithelium. differentiate into new olfactory neurons, whose axons grow along the existing axons to the olfactory bulb. Any factors that destroy all the olfactory neurons at once would end up permanent loss of sense smell, a condition known as anosmia. The illnesses, the acute inflammations of the nasal mucus may lead to the translate anosmia. Loss of smell also affect the taste experience, as taste and smell are two aspects of flavor. The ability to smell decrease with normal agents, but anosmia is also a normal sign of several neurons degenerating disorders because epileptic seizures often originate the brain area associated with the olfactory cortex. Seizures are often persuaded by the hallucinations of disagreeable odors.
These are the anatomy and physiology of the nose. The nose has a 10-part of required. First, septum, nostrils, olfactory valve, olfactory tracts, cerebrum plate of ethmoid bone, cuttings of epithelium, nasopharynx, fibers of olfactory nerve, olfactory region, nasal cavity. First, septum, made up of cartilage and bone and covered by mucous membrane. The cartilage also gives shape and support to the outer part of the nose. Nostrils, these are two chambers divided by the septum. Olfactory bulb, it is located by forebrain of vertebrates that receives neural input about odors detected by cells in the nasal cavity. Olfactory tracts, it is connect the olfactory bulb to multiply areas within the center of the brain. Cerebellum plate of ethmoid bone. Separate the caudal nasal cavity from the brain. Cuttings of epithelium. It is refers to the layer of cells that lines all organs and glands. Nasopharynx, it is space above the soap of plate of the back nose, which connect the nose, the mouth. It is allows a person to breathe through the nose. Fibers of olfactory nerve. It is located within the mucosa of nasal cavity. It is covered the senses of smells, which the transmit information to the brain from smell receptors in the nose. Olfactory region. These are connect of nostrils, ethmoid bone, nasal cavity, and olfactory epithelium. Nasal cavity. It is inside in your nose. It is lined with a mucous membrane that help keep your nose most by making mucus, so you won't get a nosebleed from a dry nose.
So in this slide, we will talk about the posterior and the anterior part of the olfactory of nose. So in the posterior part, we have an olfactory tract, cribriform plate, connective tissue, olfactory epithelium, and the mucous layer on epithelial surface. So in the anterior part, we have also a secondary neuron of olfactory bulb. Again, olfactory bulb. We have also a foramen, olfactory nerve processes, axon, basal cell, supporting cells, olfactory neurons, dendrite, cilia or olfactory hairs, and the last one is the olfactory vesicles. So in the upper part of the anterior, we have secondary neurons of olfactory bulb, which it relay and located either in the spinal cord or brainstem. These neurons ascending axon will cross or decussate. Then we have an olfactory bulb, just like what I mentioned recently. It is located in the forebrain of vertebrates that receives neural input about odors detected by cells in the nasal cavity. Next is foramen. So the foramen, it is a bony hollow archway created by pedicles of adjacent vertebrae, which creating a passageway through which all spinal nerves root run. The next one is olfactory nerve processes. It is a special sensory for the sense of smell. They originate in the receptor of the olfactory epithelium and pass through the olfactory foramina and cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. Next is the axon. So the axon is a long, slender projections of a nerve cell or neurons in the vertebrates that typically conducted electrical impulses known as action. It's also transmitting part of the neuron. So the next is we have a basal cell. So the basal cell, it is a stem cells that gives rise to the olfactory receptor cells. Then the supporting cells. We have also a supporting cells that has two types of supporting cells, which the one is sustentacular cells. It functions as metabolic and physical support of the olfactory epithelium. Then the last one is the microvillar. So the microvillar is a microscopic cellular membrane protrusion which increase the surface area of the diffusion and minimize any increase in volume, including absorption, secretion, cellular hydration, and the mechanotransduction. Then next we have an olfactory neuron. So the olfactory neuron, driven by delivery of odorant, this is the olfactory neurons. It is the driven by delivery of odorant to the nasal cavity carried by the inhaled air. Then we have a dendrite. So the dendrite, it is the receiving part of the neuron and receive synaptic input from the axon. So that's what the functions of the dendrite. Then the cilia is also called olfactory hairs. So it is a microtubules based hair-like organelles that extend from the surface of all types of human body. Olfactory vesicles. The olfactory vesicles is located above the cilia. So it containing kinocilia, which serve as site of stimulus transductions. It's also specialized epithelial cells which give rise the olfactory vesicles. So those of that are the anatomy and physiology of the posterior and the anterior part of the olfactory of the nose.
So now I am going to explain about the action of odorant binding to membrane receptor of olfactory hair. As you can see in this image, this is the cilia, the olfactory hairs. So the olfactory hairs, which lie in a thin mucus, film on the epithelial surface. So in this image, as you can see, the image number 1, which is the site is not fully activated. So they have the odorant at the above, odorant receptor, the G protein, adenylyl cyclase, the sodium, and the Gerrid ion channel. So at the below of the image, as you can see, the pictures of the odorant binds to a specific odorant receptor. So the associated G protein is activated, the A, B, and Y subunits dissociate the A subunit of the G protein binds to and activates adenylate cyclase. So the A subunit binds to adenylate cyclase. As you can see, this subunit is needing the energy of ATP to open the ion channels. But the helping of energy, we need the force or the strength to open the ion channel. So, at the opening of ion channels, the adenylate cyclases catalyzes the conversion of ATP to cyclic AMP. So, the CMP or the cyclic opens ion channels such as the Na+ and the Ca2+, the sodium and the calcium. So, ions entering the olfactory hair cause depolarization of neuron. When the ion channels open, the sodium or in the calcium, the sodium is of the olfactory hair cause depolarization of the neuron. So now, let's proceed to the neuronal pathways for olfaction. So as you can see, we have the anatomy, which is the image of the neuronal pathways for olfactions. So the axons from the olfactory neurons form the olfactory nerves is what we call the cranial nerve 1. As you can see in these pictures, the fibers of olfactory nerves or the olfactory nerves is this just like a hair or the nerves or neurons, and then coming up to the olfactory bulb by the axons of the olfactory neurons project through the foramina in the cribriform plate of the olfactory bulb. Coming up to the olfactory bulb, and the axons of neurons in the olfactory bulb project through the olfactory tract to the areas of olfactory cerebrum. As you can see, the olfactory bulb here in this just like a head. And then after the olfactory bulb, coming up to the olfactory tract. The olfactory tract is in here is like a long yellow in that things. So after the olfactory tract to the olfactory areas of the cerebrum. These olfactory cortex areas of the cerebrum here in this circle of violet circle, as you can see in the frontal bone or the central, and then after that the central olfactory cortex areas coming down are located in the temporoprontal lobes. So as you can see, the olfactory cortex areas of the cerebrum is located in the temporal and frontal lobes. So these frontal lobes are involved in the complex processing of olfactory stimuli perception.
Disease of sense of smell. Anosmia. Anosmia is the partial or complete loss of sense of smell. This loss may be temporary or permanent. The term anosmia refers to the total loss of smell. Anosmia may be caused by an infection such as cold or flu. It may also be caused by nasal polyps or other blockage. Then number 2, hyposmia, allergies, lead injury infections such as flu, smoking are possible cause of hyposmia. It is when a person lost part or all of their sense. Hyposmia, common cause of hyposmia are head and nose injury, vital damage to smell system after a bad cold. This smell disorder can result in the inability to detect environmental damage such as gas, leaks, toxins, or smoke.